show called Pop, so they drop the knowledge on all the latest thoughts. From comics and movies, games and TV shows. You guys are amazing. Daryl the Derelict gets the credit. Totally Killer, a Blumhouse direct to Amazon film that is truly, truly entertaining. Like, I had such a good time. And I have said multiple times, even recently, I'm not a massive fan of time travel movies. They have issues. This one doesn't get too bogged down with the time travel rules. They come up with a very simple concept. They touch on the rules a couple of times. Let the chips fall where they may. If anything, the contrivances that this teen girl was able to make the machine was the hardest part to sort of like get my head around. But that being said, what is Totally Killer? He described it as Back to the Future meets Halloween. That's actually pretty close. Like Back to the Future slash maybe like Hot Tub Time Machine or Bill and Ted, where you have sort of like a silliness with time travel rather than something that was rudimentarily like real heavy in science. And then a complete slasher movie, like with some suspense. So Halloween and Scream, imagine those kinds of things, but set mostly in 1987, which gives you all the nostalgia love that you're going to enjoy. I'm telling you, it was a fun time. So basically, the premise of the story is this. Meet Jamie, small town girl in a small town of Vernon. That's right, a place where three teenage girls have died in 1987 at the hands of a serial killer called Sweet 16 Killer. They happened on two consecutive nights, so October 27th, 29th, and then Halloween itself. Now, in the present time, Jamie, who doesn't get along with her parents, not many teenagers do, on Halloween night, there's an attempt, and actually, her mother gets killed. And then the killer ultimately comes after her. She ends up running into this science experiment, time machine, and goes back to, believe it or not, 1987. So she decides, I'll try to stop the Sweet 16 killer, save my mom. Right. So, why is it so entertaining? It is entertaining because Jamie is a fish out of water. She is immediately met with just 80s cliches. This is like smoking mom with her ridiculous outfit. Like, you should be in school, girl. She's like, I'm not going to school. So, and this is the 80s and the current version of her mother. So she is totally thrust into the 80s and then finds out what she's been, I guess, what she's been told slash what she thought are two completely different realities. And I think that is what's great. We see a little bit of this with Back to the Future, but this is probably a lot more realistic for the 80s. Now, I don't know about the 50s enough to speak to it, but it seems the casual conversation about sex, the casual behavior, all of the innuendos and different behaviors and things like that that are presented in this movie were spot on to the 1980s. Had to admit that it was it was a free for all in many many ways. I will say there's a ton of sort of like woke and uh, mocking woke moments. So what I mean by that, right? Oh, it's like you shouldn't say that. It's like screw you, woman. Like stop being a child. Like it is literally like the back and forth of the two worlds. It is done so perfectly well. This is the comedy that you've been wanting. You wanted someone to like take a few jabs at the absurdity of a few things and then also like ask yourself, was it really really a good idea in the 80s to behave a certain way? The supporting cast that her mother is part of is three or four girls. They call themselves the Mollies because they're obsessed with Molly Ringwald, which I think is fine for the film. I don't remember any Mollies. I remember people that would dress like Molly Ringwald for a Halloween or something like that, but not regularly. I do remember the general trend of the dress code is definitely well represented in this movie, but the little friend group is fine. They're totally mean girls before the mean girl stigma. They are total sluts. So I remember like the cheerleading cliques in my high school. I remember that era of things and some of the loose girl innuendos and things that were thrown around about those girls, but I don't think this was all the schools or all the girls or anything like that, but it is a fun cliche to play off of. And then, like I said, when you throw in the drinking and some of the drugs and all of the craziness, it does lend itself to holding a mirror up to the from the past to the present, and Jamie being the tool to do that. All right, I did say it's a horror comedy. So yeah, this is the serial killer, Sweet 16 killer, wearing this crazy mask and T-shirt, which I found to be interesting. Of that, he has a very unique shirt, and I thought myself, like, how would he get his hands on the shirt in the future too? Like the person that makes the murder in the future. So there's a little things there that kind of like didn't occur to me right from the beginning of the film, but by the end of the film, I was narrowing down suspects because of a couple of little clues like that. Like you should be able to pick up on that. You know, who would get their hands on a mask, who would get their hands on a t-shirt, who would know all the details. And then when she's backwards and she's in 87, she really has a very strong compare and contrast between past and future. So it's done really, really fun. It's I really, really enjoyed that. I think as a horror movie, it has a lot more of a Scream feel. It's trying to have a lot of Halloween elements, and it has like Friday the 13th stalker feel as well. But it has more of like that teen fun approach, which is more done like Scream. So they have to have like the uber weird, awkward kid. His nickname is Lurch. I love the fact that there's a moment where they talk about his real name and none of them even know his real name, which I don't remember, by the way. I remember Lurch. So whatever his real name is, they forget. It turns out that he's very key to the story. But I love the fact that they give you enough of a twist that it doesn't line up the way you think it will. I mentioned Friday the 13th. I guess I should point out, yeah, they do have a, creepy cabin thing here for sure. So, and yeah, tons of stuff is revealed in the trailer. I didn't watch the trailer to know, really kind of gauge what was spoiled or not spoiled. I was totally off Daryl's recommendation. So I would not recommend watching the trailer because you are going to lose some of the stuff, some of the gags, like that. Just no reason to do that. It is sort of intense rather than like gory per se. Things happen a lot more off screen. You see a lot more of like crime scenes than you do like actual like blood spatter right on the camera or anything like that. So, and just really does such a fun job of capturing the moments. Like really does such a fun job of capturing the 80s. And I think that is what lends itself well to what works in this film is that you do believe it all. So, but yeah, raunchy in the sense of a lot of cursing, sexual innuendo, sexual topics, things like that. No nudity. I think that it didn't need to have quite so much cursing. I don't think that it lent itself to being anything really dramatically off-putting, but I also don't think it really helped itself. But overall, right now, I'm going to give it a very solid, like 3.5 out of 5 stars. A very fun movie, a solid 7 for sure. Leaning higher because I do feel like this is a rewatchability, but that is probably my bias because of the 80s nostalgia. Just saying. I think that Jamie is a perfectly likable character. She was in what's it called? Mad Men. She's the daughter in Mad Men. And she's very, very good. I don't think they played her up as being too witchy or anything like that. So it works pretty well for me. All the other characters were fine for what they are. I mean, Charlie Gillespie is like the huge hunk who turns out to be her dad. He is actually kind of funny as like the, doofusy athletic jock type. I think there's a couple other fun moments, but I don't know that anyone really stood out to me other than that. There's kind of interesting commentary about like the newscasting and the podcasting circle between the past and the present. I love the commentary there because it never got heavy-handed. You have people who just hate it, and you can either agree or disagree with their dislike of it. So it creates the conversation of, is that true? Should we have a podcaster person constantly rehashing the fact that these murders happen in our town, constantly bringing up the bad memories, or maybe the fact that we've never caught this killer? I mean, especially if you put yourself in this itty bitty tiny town where this would be so traumatic for everyone, similar to what we saw in Halloween. So, like I said, overall, solid 3.5. See rewatchability, fun, especially if you're a child of the 80s and can get a lot of the references and enjoy that sort of nostalgia stuff. And if you like horror movies, that kind of thing, I'd love your thoughts on that. Don't think movie's really scary per se. I think it's more of just like that comedic style that you see more with Scream than you do like suspenseful or creepiness that you see with like a Halloween. So it has like thrilling edge of the seat kind of efforts, but at the same time, you almost know who's going to survive or not survive, that kind of thing. I did mention briefly like the young teen girl that geniuses up the machine. There was a quick moment about having notes from her genius mom, and that's the premise in the past, is that she's the genius mom. It just becomes a little less believable than what you get from like Doc Brown, right? You know, we don't even address it in most time travel movies, like how this is even possible. Like who's the person that actually like solved the Rubik's Cube? At least if I give them credit for trying to come up with something, I don't know that I totally believed it. I also don't think they did themselves any harm by trying to over-explain it or get too far into the weeds. They dabble a little bit, but not enough to turn me off. So if you worry about the time travel part, that's my take on that as well. So, all right, that's my thoughts. If you've seen it, let me know what you guys think. If you watch it, let me know your thoughts there. Thanks for watching. I am Pops. It's at least a worthy conversation to have and compare and contrast that from, and again, put yourself in itty. Oh boy, that's an outtake for sure.
Oh, this is becoming a blooper.